it all happened as kind of a confluence of events that just was perfect from a timing perspective. That during vIITSEC, each service rotates around and has a special event during their year as the lead service. The Navy had that in 2006. So leading up to that event, call went out for people to determine what would be a good special event for the vIITSEC venue. And I had been talking to a lot of experts in the field about serious games and realized that really the advocacy and awareness of the power of serious games was an area that was missing. It was also during this time frame that I had been spending time with the actual entertainment game industry, different events that they were holding, and wanted to mirror some of the success that they had for some of their independent games, and thought that instituting something like that at vIITSEC for the serious games genre would actually provide that extra boost of awareness and advocacy to the populace that attends vIITSEC that is interested in training. And so it just happened to all coincide at the same time. Fortunately, it was a little bit difficult to get the buy-off on that because not everybody was truly understanding of the power of serious games. But over the course of the year, we were able to bring them around, and as a result, it went off very well in the first year, and it's just continued to grow. I believe that they have become more open to the use of games in training. The reason that exists, one, again, they see all of the different ways that gaming technology can be used to impart a training objective, because we've been able to show them all those different means through the Serious Game Showcase and Challenge. But I also believe that it is shifted because the leaders themselves, the demographic of the leaders has shifted. At the time in 2006, there were probably fewer leaders that were actually had played games and understood the power of the games. Whereas today, a vast majority of our leaders have played games and they really do understand it, and they are more open to the use of new and varied virtual technologies in order to provide that learning experience. The virtual environment is much more prevalent, and in the games aspect of that, virtual environment is just one of the many tools that they have available for themselves. And so they are very much more interested in exploring those technologies and employing those technologies for their different purposes.
Well, when we first built our game in 2008, the leadership was not familiar with games. 06s or Master Chiefs or senior enlisted and officers didn't really know games. You may have had junior enlisted and maybe junior officers that understood them. And so it was a real lift to try to convince them that there is a serious application for game-based technologies and game-based approaches. By 2014, when we submitted Strike Group Defender, now we had 04s, 05s that had been playing games for a long time. And then likewise, you had mid to senior enlisted folks that were doing it. By 2019, we have flag officers that have been playing games for 15 years or more. And then all the enlisted ranks we have found have been playing games. So you always have to make the case of why a game can solve a problem and where it fits in. But compared to 2008, we had to make the case that it was actually a legitimate thing and not just a novelty. So it really is this intersection of people growing up more and more with games, leadership in the defense becoming more familiar with them, and then lastly, the games have just been getting so much more sophisticated technologically that there's broader and more wide application for them to find a place. So it's not so hard to find a spot and defend that for a serious-based application.
It indicates to me that the challenge is morphing with the times. It is evergreen. It's not set in stone as to how it is operated, but it adapts to the types of games and the types of technology that are being used in order to use the serious game as a way to impart training objectives. Moving into handheld devices and phones, apps as opposed to just PC generated, the use of virtual environments, virtual reality, different things like that, the multiplayer type games as opposed to single person type games. All of that, just the ability to adapt and take advantage of those technologies and showcase those technologies to the participants within IITSEC is exactly what it was all about. And so it was truly it represents the value and the way it was organized. So I'm really happy about how that turned out.
So when we submitted Straight Group Defender in 2014, it was a game. It was the front end, it was the UI, it was the back end. It was an entire game, and it had a mini platform built within it. We built it on the Unity engine, and so on. And we had a really positive experience, and we achieved the goals we wanted to with Straight Group Defender. And as soon as we got done with it, our customer said, "That was fantastic. I want another one." And then another person in their office says, "I want one." And so what we realized is that we've been concentrating on building games, but really what we needed to do from an R&D standpoint is focus on building a platform that was unique and could reduce the barrier to entry for serious games within the government. And so that is how we conceived of the JCOR platform, the Joint Cognitive Operations Research Environment, which is essentially a platform meant for the specialized purpose of serious games in defense. When we started building or conceiving of JCOR in 2014, 2015, there was nothing that we needed that was out there as a turnkey. You had a game engine, but it didn't do good computation. You had a simulator, but it didn't do front-end game development. You had games that did not have rich data collection architecture, or you had simulations that were systems focused but not human focused, and therefore unsuitable for a lot of purposes. And so the R&D goal with the Office of Naval Research and the Navy at that point was, well, let's build a platform that reduces the barrier to entry for people and conceives of games as apps. And we're really building the iOS or the iPhone, or we're building the Android, because people in this increasingly virtualization of content, most customers are not going to have the expertise, the budget, the wherewithal, the risk tolerance, the authorization to build a back-end architecture for game. But they do have a lot of content and experts that they just need to better present in a game-based application. And so that was where JCOR came from. And it was focused on rapid prototype. It still is to this day, rapid prototyping, wargaming, AI development, and experimentation. And training is a purpose that is widely used throughout it as well. And so from 2014 to 2019, we expanded from Straight Group Defender as the app to JCOR as the host and the developer of apps.
I really believe that the vast majority of the serious games were in the first-person shooter context. Again, the technology was not as advanced, and so to truly engage the user, they needed to have, it was more of a kinematic that were imparted within the games, and that was through the first-person shooter type of concept. So the Marine Corps and the Army were using a lot of those technologies to engage their soldiers and Marines into the use of games to accomplish whatever they were teaching. And but today, it's with the additional technologies that we have available, we can get into softer technologies, softer science aspects of it. It's not, doesn't have to be, the force on force type of thing. It can truly be something that's more cognitive and strategic in nature, and trying to get to different learning approaches and different aspects of how you come to decisions, policy making, and things along those lines. And so it has changed from that perspective, and it's becoming much more powerful as a result. It's the power of involvement. If you think back, I mean, and it's been stated multiple different ways in the teaching communities, but Benjamin Franklin, I think, summed it up best when he said that. So Benjamin Franklin said, "If you tell me, I will forget. If you teach me, I may remember. But if you involve me, I will learn." And that's what the power of the game is. It's the involvement aspect where you are actually doing the task that is assigned. And through that repetition of doing the task within that virtual environment and achieving the goals that are set out within that game, you are learning and you are retaining. And so it's from an ability to not only get the learning value out of it, but it's the retention and the proficiency of that learning value that comes from being able to have hands-on within the serious game. Is the merger of the games within the LVC construct. So LVC is live training, and then you have virtual training, and you have constructive training, and then also in the Marine Corps and the Army, they're spending more time on games as a separate subset, and then merging them together gives us the ability to accomplish multiple different training objectives within the same basic training environment as we push forward and merge those together. And so you might be training an individual operator on a game, but that operator is part of an overall squad that is also providing inputs into a larger context of a exercise that is involving live players as well as other virtual assets and stimulated by some of the different constructed assets that are out there. And so I think that's one of the more powerful aspects of how we're using it today, is not just a standalone, but as linked with other different types of training apparatus.
So the types of applications that we're building with the J-Core and our multitude of different customers is pretty wide ranging. In one case, we're taking a literally a Monopoly-like tactics board game and converting it into a distributable virtual world. We are doing an enormous amount of work on creating decision-making environments where operators or users are making decisions in virtual environments. And then we're using this real rich, immersive data to be the fuel to train algorithms, human-based algorithms. A lot of applications in the AI development world. We've done things like a lot of things: intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, integrated missile defense, starting to look at space systems, planes, ships, submarines, command and control, wargaming types of effort. We worked on wide-scale casualty, mass casualty in wartime scenarios. Interesting project we're working on with the Navy is mapping out the 30-year shipbuilding plan over time and seeing how that becomes a composite capability all the way out to 2048. So there's a broad swath of applications that we're working on. And while our team is certainly very dynamic in ability to do diverse things, I think it really speaks to the enormous breadth and depth and diversity of application that's coming out of the gaming market, gaming technologies, gaming know-how, and merging that in with real know-how from the serious side or the defense side. And so those are some snapshots of some of the projects that we're working on without getting into great detail.
Goals really were advocacy and awareness of the power of serious games.
So we believe that gaming technology has very broad application. If you think about a game, it's really just the game is a wrapper around a bundle of sophisticated technologies. And the wrapper can be entertainment and fun, or it can be a serious game and meant that it's some type of altruistic or civic or some type of education or learning, anything other than entertainment purpose, although it should still be fun. And so these technologies are really powerful in solving a lot of issues that I think that the DoD in particular struggles with. For instance, if you take Call of Duty, I can't see really anything more sophisticated as a battle management system. You have distributed people over time, geographically separated, working in real time with a common set of rules against common enemies with real-time outcome. And they're running a war. And so if you look at those capacities and you kind of analogically overlay them onto what's going on, I can see that games have, and basically the components of games can solve large or relatively narrow parts of this. This is kind of a two-way street too, because serious games in the beginning were fun and they're cool, but the more serious they become, the less interesting and less fun they also become. So if I use a set of technology to solve a data distribution problem, that isn't necessarily fun. That isn't necessarily a game. And so I think what we're finding is there's this kind of inverse force that is happening where the more serious I became in trying to use these gaming technology to solve real world problems, the less interesting and compelling and gamey they become. And so that's a thing we're trying to contend with as well. And I think it's a good thing, and it's part of technologies that are being fostered out of the gaming world, starting to solve broad or very deep and specific or enduring problems in the acquisition level, as opposed to just having a game itself, which is delivering content and trying to improve on something. And the other thing is I think that games are really finding their place in a unique market space within the Department of Defense. Typically you have Bogsat, a bunch of guys sitting around a table doing a wargaming on a laminated map with Legos and stickies and PowerPoint briefs. And on the other end, you have a very high-end sophisticated modeling and simulation that's largely focusing on systems simulations. But in the middle, there's this huge space where you need simulation capabilities that you can build fast, quickly, inexpensively, and get an 80% solution like now or within hours, as opposed to the big sophisticated simulations, which are very important, coming up with an expensive answer after months. And so we're finding that games are right in that intersection between completely manual or analog wargaming or efforts, and then on the right side of that is sophisticated modeling and simulation. And so this what we call medium fidelity, highly iterative, human focused answer in real time or near real time is a huge market right now that people are dying to get into. To quote Vice Admiral Manazar, who sponsored JCOR right in the beginning, we talked about, we're the 80% solution. We're not going to guarantee that this is the perfect answer. And up until that point, if you said that, that was almost heresy. Nobody really contemplated that data that was less than 100% accurate would have any value to it. And he said, I will take 80% all day long because my staffs are just making it up already. So if I can have a simulation, I can run a game-based simulation and get answers fast and now, I'll check some of them in the future with the sophisticated answers and make sure. And so I think if you use that as an overlay, I think you'll find that games and the technologies that support this wrapper around serious games is having broad applications, and I think people are finding really solid homes for it, where there's an absence of a lot of solutions right now. And so with JCOR and what we're doing, that is where we're concentrating, is in the rapid solution, rapid answers, easy and quick to prototype, low barrier to entry, economical development of things, and focusing on the technical readiness level that's really between the 2 and the 5, and creating in that space. Of the dozens of applications we built on JCOR, almost every one of them falls within that middle medium fidelity area. And so I think that is a real focus area and home that I believe games are going to increasingly fill.
So the goal itself, I don't believe has changed. I think it's still awareness and advocacy, but it's becoming awareness of all that the serious game, and not just that serious games has a place within the training potential, and it's all of the different ways within which you can use games and gaming technology to advance training objectives. You know, from a technology perspective, artificial intelligence is going to be something that is going to be at the forefront of everybody's mind. It is going to be in existence in varying degrees, and then how we tap those pieces of artificial intelligence and then bring them into the gaming world, and then marry that up with what we want to accomplish, you know, using artificial intelligence and gaming to meet the different, you know, training objectives that we have. So decision making is one of the most important things that we need to train in our different warfighters. And, you know, as artificial intelligence, you know, comes to bear, decisions have to be made much more rapidly than they do today. And we need to have an ability to actually practice that and train for that. because it is going to be a different way of conducting business. So I see in that length of time, that's where we need to take the games. And so the Serious Games Showcase and Challenge will be poised to support that into the future. And we just need to be prepared for those kinds of technologies and applications coming forward.
So where do we see serious games going, and what are some of the harder points that I think we face as games make it to the next generation? I would say the recurring difficulty that we see is the mismatch in expectations of what games can do. We have people, for instance, and go, I want Call of Duty. Well, they have $1 million problem and they're trying to solve it with $1 billion franchise. So I think that mismatching what can be done and what should be done and what can be done well can be a real problem. I think also there are a lot of people that are getting into the space of serious games. A lot of them are coming from the gaming industry, or conversely, they're defense groups that are trying to push into games. Compliance and security is becoming an enormously complicated, expensive, and serious topic. Commercial game companies that want to get in defense usually don't last past the first conversation when you show them what they have to do on the new security compliance in networks and physical security. And so as games are becoming more serious and they are addressing very serious applications and real world data, they are losing the public face and going behind, you know, the proverbial green door more and more. And so the minute that games go behind the door and they are not out in the commercial side interacting amongst the, you know, the game world and other things, I feel like there's an atrophy in relevance or in currency on that as they become another simulation as opposed to, you know, the DNA of a good game. So these are good problems to have because it means that there's growth and there's acceptance. But as we, in the game spaces, we move from a niche to a reputable capability, we have to address the serious problems that reputable systems and other efforts have to also undergo. And so if we want to play in the serious space, we have to do the serious application and infrastructure that goes with it. And that is very expensive and very difficult, and it's going to be quite off-putting to a lot of people that want to just get into games and defense or games and government because of a multitude of really good reasons why they should. So I think the reality and the notion is getting very difficult in some regards as it becomes more and more serious and addresses increasingly real world problems.
Yeah, I'm humbled that I was able to help kick this off, but it is definitely a team effort. It's a year-round effort of many dedicated professionals trying to keep this afloat and keep everything working so that we can continue to benefit from the power of the serious games.